Um, and what I'm going to be doing with this speech is I'll first give some definitions, and then I will give the framework, go into some observations, and then I will go into our 3 advantages. So if you're following on separate sheets, there are 3 sheets. And this looks like a really fun topic. I'm excited. Okay. If everyone is ready, I will begin my time. And let me know if I cut out or if I'm speaking too fast. All right. I'll begin my time now. All right. In the year 2021 CE, the Earth receives communications from an alien planet. Humans should not reply to those communications. I'm proud to affirm. We're defining reply as sending a welcome message. We're defining receives communications is, in this hypothetical world, the aliens were able to send out a message essentially to an entire area, say the galaxy. The aliens are unaware of humans' presence on Earth. The round is obviously not in the real world, but imagine that we somehow were provided the ability to respond to aliens' messages and messaging by their message. All right. These aliens are very likely to be extremely technologically sophisticated, since they have proven to have the ability to do something like travel between star systems and send out a message to the entire galaxy. Given that massive technological power, the worst thing you could do would be to potentially provoke these aliens. Since they have this technology, they can presumably wipe out a planet like Earth at the snap of their fingers should they desire to do so, or colonize it. We can assume that there will be some spacecraft here that contains aliens and that they are technologically sophisticated. Our framework is the most good for the most people on Earth, so net benefits for people on Earth. The actor/agent of enforcement is a collective group of human scientists from around the planet. Timeline is ASAP. Funding is normal ways and means. Observations is there is a huge ambiguity in terms of what this message will say. The premise of the opposition case is going to be that aliens and humans will view this message in the same way. We'll have to prove this, and that's a large burden of proof. Like, we can assume that we're going to try to be welcoming with this message, but the point is it's going to come across in a bad way. All right. Our first advantage is that it makes violence and threats to Earth and humans more likely. So point A is that we've been incredibly generous with our definitions of a reply as a welcome message. However harmless this message is, it is unlikely that they will understand its true message, as it will be impossible for them to understand what it conveys. Reason 1 is language barriers. They will not speak English or any human languages, most likely. There is no way for us to give aliens a message and guarantee that they will understand it. Reason 2 is different societal norms. Offering something could be seen as a threat, so what we view as welcoming could be seen as threatening or dangerous by the aliens. To give an example on Earth, in some Asian countries, hard handshakes are considered rude, whereas in Western countries, you're expected to give someone a hard handshake. In Vietnam, it's unacceptable to shake someone's hand who's in a higher social class or older than you. This is all according to the INC. Or for example, even basic animalistic differences. Cats, when they shake their tails, it's a sign of danger. They're mad at you. When dogs wag their tails, they're really happy and they're want you to pet them. Reason 3, they are likely to view the act of broadcasting this message as a threat. Put yourself in the shoes of the aliens. You are coming into contact with a foreign and unknown people for whom you do not know how technologically advanced they are or whether they pose a threat, and receive a message you cannot understand. Your reaction will be to take care of that. The point is, they're sending us an ambiguous message. We can tell it's from aliens. We don't know exactly what it is. We're gonna respond with something also ambiguous. There's a huge language barrier. It's gonna be dangerous. They can view it in a bad way. So point B is we've given you a bunch of reasons why the welcome message will not be understood, but conditionally, even if you don't believe any of that analysis, let's look at why the message will be seen as a threat. There are 2 possible reasons the aliens could be sending out this message and searching for other places. Option 1 is that the aliens knew we were here, in which case they receive a message for us, and they could be very likely to see it as a threat to their stability. Or option 2 is that the aliens didn't know we were here, weren't sure we were here, in which case they now assume that there's another civilization that is willing to compete with them. At this point, the aliens will likely retaliate and feel threatened. Now, why is this bad? Reason 1 is that it increases likelihood of violence, like a military invasion of Earth, since the aliens now feel like they might be at risk. Reason 2 is that since these aliens now realize that that we now are here, they know we can be preparing for military warfare against them. So now they're gonna it's more likely that they're gonna commit violent acts against us, which is clearly not in the best interest of Earth. Millions of people will die. All right. Our second contention or advantage is that any risk of contact with the aliens must be avoided. So point A of this is biological risk as a result of contact. Sending a welcome message makes contact more likely between humans and aliens for 2 main reasons. Reason 1 is that this welcome message might involve direct contact, like sending a human ambassador to meet with these aliens. Reason 2 is that the message now makes it 100% clear that we are here and we are aware of their presence. If we don't respond, it is not clear that aliens will know for sure that we are here and aware of their presence, because they might have sent Earth a message on the off chance that someone is here. Separated groups coming together poses a massive biological risk. For example, let's look at the Columbian Exchange. During the original colonization, it brought new diseases to Americas and Europe. To quote from Northwestern, the list of infectious diseases that spread from the old world to the new world is long. The major killers include smallpox, measles, whooping cough, chickenpox, bubonic plague, typhus, and malaria, including syphilis. When the Europeans arrived carrying germs which thrived in dense semi-urban populations, the indigenous people of the Americas were effectively doomed. They had never experienced smallpox, measles, or flu before, and the viruses tore through the continent, killing an estimated 90% of Native Americans, according to PBS. According to Business Insider, this killed roughly 55 million Native Americans. So the larger difference between species, like we are pretty close to Native American. Sorry, Europeans are very biologically similar to Native Americans. Aliens are very, very biologically different from humans. It's a very big difference. The larger difference between species means an even larger biological risk. The difference between the new world and the old world was not that big of a deal. We all came from the same evolutionary process, but we and aliens did not. So point B is that there are two main possible reasons that aliens might have sent us a message. Reason one is that they were exploring or looking around. Reason two is that they were looking for resources. If they're just exploring and they're sending a message because they're not really sure what's on Earth, we have now alerted them to our knowledge of our existence and our location if we agree with op. This could be perceived as us threatening them. See our first contention. Or if they're just looking for resources, option two, we have A, confirmed our location, and B, confirmed we have enough resources to respond to a message. So either we have threatened them and they could attack our planet to try to quash the threat, leading to billions of deaths, or we have alerted them to the fact that we have resources so they can conquer us, because if they had enough resources to send us a message and pass through different star systems, they're clearly superior. In this case, we get colonized by aliens, and that means worse quality of life for everyone in the world, which is billions of people. Our third contention is about representation. Interactions with aliens is not a national problem, it's a global one. And that means that if we were to respond to aliens, by some necessity, we would be leaving someone out. So point A is the UNSC. The most likely way the humans would respond is through the UN. Unfortunately, the UN Security Council is highly outdated and Eurocentric. The 5 permanent members, all of whom have veto power and control basically all the UNSC, are China, Russia, the UK, France, and the US. Sadly, these countries will have absolute power over what the message is and how it will be sent. This means these 5 countries can take advantage of the other nations and the message that they send. They can act in their own interest while excluding those in nations that don't have high-powered economies. So point B is the representation of these representatives of these countries. Even if the countries themselves somehow manage to represent the Earth in an equitable way for some other countries, like if the US looks out for countries like Syria, the representatives of those countries in the UN are not equitable and do not equitably reflect the countries. In most cases, women account for fewer than 20% of UN seats on the Security Council, according to GitHub. Even fewer are gay. How can a bunch of aging men somehow speak for an entire planet? The impact here is that the message is going to be a poor reflection of what people on Earth actually think. This is bad because when aliens arrive, they'll see a different world from the world they expect and make them very angry. Also, they'll interact with Earth in the wrong ways and treat people differently and badly, leading to further perpetuation of racism, sexism, and misogyny. So thank you, and urging about.
All right, so I'm going to be covering I'll cover AF top of case, then neg top of case. Yeah, AF top of case, neg top of case, neg DAs responding to AF. All right, with that, my time starts now. We proudly negate today's resolution. Let's start off with their definition of reply being sending a welcome message. We pretty much agree with that, but the main thing that they say is that it's going to be a message to the entire galaxy. The message is decided by the international threat, not only a welcome message. We have to look at the real world. For example, if the aliens asked anyone if anyone is there, then we would say yes. On top of that, it's not sending out to the entire galaxy. It specifically says Earth, so probably this is extra topical. It's not really relevant here. And even if it were, it doesn't really matter. But I think it would be specified to the Earth. They say we would provoke aliens if they send out a message. They're probably expecting a response, or they're just going to take over the resources, which probably means that replying is a try or die. Either you're going to attempt to just try to broker peace, or you're going to just collapse completely. So it's either complete colonization or the potential for peace. I think the neg pretty much wins a try or die there. That's kind of the first weighing. The second thing is net benefits for humans. They tell you a lot about this, but we think that this weighing mechanism promotes this anthropocentric perspective when we should literally be addressing other universal contexts, which probably means that we should be focusing on the net benefits for the universe, including the potential for technological discoveries, which is probably a beneficial group. They tell you about collective group of human scientists. Remember that the international community is what we're talking about in the basic frameworks that have been created in terms of post-detection policies, which is basically when we detect or receive extraterrestrial intelligence, they've been created so that all of all of the different like there's no state that's involved. It's more of like a cosmopolitan view, a cosmopolitanist perspective, where it's like everybody is a citizen of the entire earth, which probably means that's going to be the collective response, not because of power structures in the United States Security Council. Let's go to the LOC. Observations, again, we're responding to the communications. I think this is universally agreed upon. Two, like in general, what we've seen is public perception shows that the thoughts and claims of alien life are true and they've been positive. We've seen responses like that across the world, which probably means that this is beneficial to like the reception that we would give to aliens in the first place. Three, the International Academy of Astronautics, along with the support of the International Institute of Space Law, confirmed basically like this international framework that hasn't been agreed upon by many organizational entities, but it basically explains that in the case of nearby contact within Earth by extraterrestrial civilizations, humans and organizational entities would follow cohesive plans to protect livelihood of aliens as well as humans and ensure proper inclusion into the world because of the potential for technological discoveries and the expansion of net benefits for the universe. And again, net benefits for the universe, not just humans. We prefer this because it's more expansive and it prevents an anthropocentric perspective that's already destroyed the environment. Let's go to the first disadvantage, which is that of technological evidence. Again, as the topic states, the aliens are the ones reaching out to the humans, which probably means that they are more advanced than humans in terms of technology. Both sides agree on this uniqueness. The second thing is that humans have not found aliens in outer space, even with the most advanced technology that humans have, beyond sending probes to like other planets. Last month, astronomers at the Breakthrough Listen project announced they had heard nothing after eavesdropping on more than 1,000 star systems within 160 light years of Earth. So we clearly do not have the technological capabilities for anything related to outer space. But on top of that, we're in need of like things like nanomedicine, AI, cybersecurity, and we're vastly behind on that in terms of like development frameworks. And probably we're not even going to be that great in comparison to aliens. I think that's universally agreed upon again. So let's go to the links. Even if even the most advanced technology has not found alien, then it's assumed that human technology is not as advanced. And what we see is that aliens could have like a new type of fuel that they use for their rockets in space that could like solve global warming happening on Earth. The second thing is that to reach us, their detection systems would be better, and this improves cybersecurity immediately. Look to the fact that literally the main argument coming out of the PMC is the fact that like we don't have resources, or like we don't have the resources to respond to their attack. So if we do not respond, they just know that they can colonize us immediately, which is probably even worse, because that means that the only method of kind of resolving these harms is through responding and trying to ensure peace, right? That's the only just vote on probability there, because even if like the magnitude is the same, like the solvency issues are the same, but like the potential or the probability of resolving is probably higher on the neg. Second thing is that if aliens have better technology than us, it can be assumed that they have the technology to destroy us in any sort of hostile act. We don't know, like our opponents say, we don't know what we could expect, right? The different like cultural barriers do exist, but maybe in their like world, silence is like hostility. So then maybe we would see even more issues there because of the fact that, oh, now we're being silenced and they'll just like take over our entire Earth, right? Like there's so many different things that we can't really consider there, which is why we should just respond in the best way possible, in the most peaceful way possible, which is already ensured by the regulatory frameworks that have been created internationally. Right. The next thing is that current frameworks would spur consultation and development of proper overcoming of language and cultural barriers eventually, if we respond in our best cultural perspectives, spurring more discussion and scholarship. One is on the impacts. One is extinction scenarios. Better technology means that opportunities for hostility for humans are aliens is going to be at an all-time high, which means that the best approach would be trying to propose peace. And the only way to actually propose something is by responding, which means that any sign of hostility by not being receptive would be detrimental impacts for like the entirety of the human race, along with like any sort of species, like the trillions of other species that exist on planet Earth. It's probably likely that extraterrestrial civilizations have a better technology, which is universally conceded here. So that would be like 7 billion human deaths, along with trillions of other species just being extinct. We don't even know how many there are in the ocean, right? I have a lot to get through. I'll try to get there if I have time. The second disadvantage is interconnectivity. Right now, what we see is that the United States is currently facing a lot of global tensions. We've seen a lot of just global tensions in general, like the Afghanistan-Pakistan conflicts with the United States, the South China Sea. We've seen like the Myanmar armed resistance issues that we literally had a topic about just now. There's just so many different conflicts in the world, and what we see is that this outside force coming in would allow us to like just regroup basically and provide even world peace external of the fact that aliens exist. What we see on the link level is that current frameworks resolve menial Earth politics and promote interconnectivity because we focus on trying to reach out to extraterrestrial civilizations instead of focusing on Earth internal politics that really don't matter in the context of the universe. What we see is that the IAA SETI Declaration of Principles basically says that if a decision has made to send a message to extraterrestrial intelligence, it should be sent on behalf of all humankind rather than individual states. So it would probably not be through the United States General Assembly. It would be through like scientific journals and scholarship that would promote that based on public perception as well, right? So what we see is this increases negotiation and promotes this like cosmopolitan perspective where everybody's a citizen of the entire world instead of their individual state. So like things like passports don't really matter as much in the context of extraterrestrial civilization. What we've seen is that the only way that the world has progressed in just like in the human perspective is through like just trade agreements and things like that, like the negotiations and the contact between people, right? That's probably going to be a key argument there. Right now, we've seen that because of the global tensions that we see here, the communication from extraterrestrial civilizations would probably just outweigh any sort of like issues here. On the impacts, one, we see a reduction of war intentions because we see a unifying of countries against a global phenomenon, and we see that war leads to like millions of lives lost, which means that regardless of the impacts, we're saving millions of lives. Let's go to the AF really quickly. They tell you likelihood of death, and they talk about all of these language and cultural barriers. This is completely unpredictable, and like we really don't know what exactly is going to happen. The message can include just visual images, like the body language that we like provide could also be seen as peaceful or hostile. Like this is really unpredictable, and it's probably not something that the AF or neg can predict. But the best thing that we can do as humans is probably to respond in the best way that we know possible, right? If we try to deceive in some way or try to assume, it's probably going to lead to even worse impacts. The second thing they tell you about like shaking tails is different. The only reason we understand that is because we've communicated, which probably means that you should communicate in order to understand the shaking tails or the hard handshakes that they talk about, right? Then they also say that the message will be a threat because like the aliens would perceive it. Again, this is, I have 29 seconds. If they know we are here, then it's better to negotiate than let them walk over us. Again, and like respond to all of their impacts, cross-supply or interconnectivity, because the only way to resolve global tensions is probably through basically just like this extraterrestrial body just coming to respond to like the human things that make all of our menial politics just as menial. They say the risk of contact should be avoided. We literally don't know that like the biological differences could be so large that it prevents any sort of transmission at all, right? Like again, this is all assumption. We can't really prove anything here, which probably means that we should do what we think is best, and that has caused the Earth to prosper for a while. For all these reasons, I strongly urge an egg ballot. Thank you.
Awesome. Before I begin, does anyone have a problem with me keeping my video off because my Wi-Fi's been a bit spotty? Okay, great. So my name's Ben Binde. I'm going to be the member of government in this debate speaking in affirmation of the motion. Pronouns are he, him, his. Going to begin with the top of the case, then I'll move into the arguments from the negation, then time willing, I'll run back through our case on the AF. Is anyone not ready? Okay, with that being said, I'm then going to begin my time now. Thank you. Judges, partner, opposition. I'm going to jump straight into the top of the case and some of the disputes with our definitions and with our framing of this round that was brought up by the leader of the opposition. To begin, with receives communications, we define this as the aliens being able to send out a message essentially to the entire galaxy, and we stated that they would not be aware of humans' presence on Earth. But let's be clear, we get this response to it that it specifies to Earth in the motion, and it's not to the entire galaxy. And I think this is a complete misinterpretation and frankly a misreading of the motion. What's going on? The Earth receives communications from an alien planet. Nowhere is it specified that this message was sent solely to Earth. It is far more likely that it was sent to the entire galaxy or to an even wider group, because if aliens already knew of people on Earth, it is likely that we would say know of their existence already. We would see them, something along those lines. We could easily have received this message because they sent it to the entire galaxy. As the affirmation, we have the right to frame the motion in any way as long as it's not extra topical. And we tell you that it is clearly not, because the Earth receives these communications. They can receive it in any style, and it's far likelier that it would have gone to more people than just the Earth. So they bring up this idea that if they send a message, it's try or die because they know we are here. This is simply not true. It's like if the Earth sent a message to Pluto or Mars in the status quo. We do not have to be sure that someone is there to send a message, and if we don't get a response, we might just not explore. So either one, what we tell you is that they're either exploring or looking around, or two, they are looking for resources. If you look at the analysis in our second advantage, we explain why we should not reply. This is pretty clear. If they don't know we're here, we should not reply. If they know we're here, we still should not reply. We give you a good amount of reasoning for this. Like, framework, they say we should focus on both aliens and humans. I'm not going to spend that long on this because we basically support the same thing. Our case is clearly the most beneficial for both aliens and for the human rate. And for humans, like we tell you about these biological harms, those apply to aliens just as much as it does to humans. Yeah, so with that being said, I'm going to run through the negation case. So we have this first dissent about technological evidence. So we have this idea, first, the uniqueness that aliens are more advanced technologically. They basically concede that point and agree with us. They state that it's assumed that human tech will not be as advanced and they could have something like fuel that fixes global warming. Let's be clear. We have this assumption from the negation here that like the technology we're going to be seeing from aliens or anything about these aliens are going to be similar or in a similar vein to what we have as humans on Earth in the status quo. They might not use fuel. They might not like have anything along these lines. They say that somehow we know these aliens will have things like nanomedicine and AI. That's completely untrue because they could have gone down a completely different path. If we talk about like how aliens exist, that's presumably we've separated from them since like the Big Bang, some amount of billions of years ago. Our paths diverged a very, very long time ago. You cannot assume anything is going to be similar between aliens and humans from that point on. They will not have tech that can help out things that will help out with issues that humans have in the status quo, or that can build off things that humans have in the status quo. And then also beyond that, if aliens are a lot more advanced than us, what is their incentive to help us? What is going to stop them from, say, just using humans for resources, even like something along those lines? Just use a historical example of what Europeans did to the Native Americans under colonialism, because the stronger power is going to do what benefits them. If they don't have things to benefit from us because we have much worse technology and we are much weaker than them, that does nothing to benefit them to somehow like get along with us and help us out. Like, their incentive will be to use our oil and natural resources and everything along those lines and then leave us. So then we get this idea that if we don't respond, they know we are weak and can respond and like they can colonize us immediately. That's completely untrue. We tell you time and time again, they do not know that people are on Earth in the status quo. If they already knew that people are on Earth and they already knew of our technological deficiencies, then they would say be attacking us or colonizing us or something along those lines in the status quo. Like they are not sure what's there or what's on Earth. The presumption here is that they're just sending a message out to the entire galaxy to see if anyone responds. They do not necessarily know that we are here. Like, we also get this idea that we can assume aliens can destroy us in any hostile act. So maybe in their world, like science is somehow hostility. Let's be clear. If in their world science is hostility, we would not be able to collaborate and Earth would get destroyed. So that basically goes against your side and that flows to the affirmation. They have this idea that tech helps us in case of extinction scenarios. Let's be clear. The negation literally creates an extinction scenario. We give you a ton of analysis for this. Second dissad, we get this idea of interconnectivity. We have this idea that an outside force coming in would allow us to regroup and provide world peace. Let's be clear. If we add tension between extraterrestrials and humans, there will be more tension on the global stage. How to respond to aliens or whether or not to respond will become another divisive political issue. This idea of a utopia where somehow all humans can agree on what this response would be frankly ridiculous. Even if you bring up this idea, whether or not the response is from like the UN Security Council or whether it's from scientists, that's deeply Eurocentric, and quite frankly, those groups are disproportionately white and male and do not adequately represent the people on Earth. Like, you can take the leading scientists in the world, how many of them are from Africa or African countries? A very, very small amount. That's not a cosmopolitan thing that somehow like represents all people on Earth. That's not what's going on. They say that we would focus on extraterrestrial operations instead of internal wars that are not relevant to the status quo. I want to be clear here. I think that people's humanity being taken away is definitely relevant. It's ridiculous for them to suggest otherwise. They say that decisions made by science should be made by scientists that represent the entire world. I've already told you they don't represent the entire world. Even beyond that, in the Gov world, what you're going to see is we're saving millions of lives and less war. Basically, what we see in response to contention is that these tensions will not be decreasing whatsoever. Going to move on to the AF case here, right? Before I get into this, I want to say that very, very little of our case was touched. What I'm anticipating is that the member of opposition in the next speech is going to spend a significant amount of time responding to our case because the vast majority of it was dropped, to be frank. Judges, I want you to keep in mind here, I'm not going to run a theory show because we're an East Coast team. We're not familiar with that, but the content of the argument still stands. My partner only has 5 minutes in his final speech. Most of that's supposed to be used for weighing in order to crystallize the round. We will not have an ability to build up our case that much aside from what I'm going to respond to right now if they dump that much in the op block, because like that many responses is going to take a significant portion of my partner's speech that causes a huge time skew that basically gives us a huge disadvantage in the round. So let's be clear. I'm going to move on to our first advantage, right? Which is the idea of making violence and threats to Earth and humanity more likely. So we give you 2 subpoints here, both of which are very strong and both of which have a ton of reasons for why that's the case. Like, judges, I think you can tell, we give you a ton of analysis here. We give you a ton of reasoning for why this is the case. Very, very little of it is touched, right? We give you this first subpoint about how it's unlikely they'll understand the true message is like a welcome message and it's going to be impossible for them to understand what it conveys. The response that we get is that's completely unpredictable. Sure, it's unpredictable, but we give you a ton of reasons why they will view it as something that is a threat and they will not be able to view it as a welcome message. And that's not really touched, right? We basically tell you that they will not, firstly, not know that it's a welcome message. Secondly, even if they do know it's a welcome message, they will view it as a threat. Like, we tell you this time and time again, it's not really touched. We give you our first reason of language barriers, not touched. Our second reason of differing social norms, we have one quick response about how the only reason we understand this is because we've interacted with these people. That just does not really make sense, right? These are examples telling you that because like different species take different things to be welcoming, it's likely that aliens will feel the same way as well. They don't really touch the analysis here. We also give you a third reason here, like basically they're coming into contact with foreign and unknown people and they receive a message they can't understand. They'll take it as a threat, also is not responded to, extended through. Give you our second subpoint here about how we say that even if you conditionally don't believe what I told you before, it'll be seen as a threat. Give you two reasons for this. Firstly, they know we are here, in which case they'll see this as a threat to their stability. Secondly, they didn't know we were here, in which case they'll assume there's another civilization that's willing to compete with them. So we tell you this increases the likelihood of violence. This means that they will know we are preparing for war against them, which means they're going to build stuff up as well. They don't respond to this whatsoever. They just say to cross-apply interconnectivity. Let's be clear, adding more differences and divisiveness will not be good for Earth. The only way you get interconnectivity is if everyone in the world unites to fight aliens, at which point we are already at war with aliens, which is more negative than interconnectivity is positive. Second contention, we give you a ton of analysis here. Once again, a bunch of subpoints, a bunch of reasons. We give you a bunch of analysis. Extend basically all of this through because it's basically untouched. The only response that we get is that we literally don't know the biological differences are that large. I think it's very fair to assume they'll be very, very biologically different. They're in a completely different universe. We're going to have to go back like billions of years to the point where we were last together genetically, if at all. That's going to be a huge genetic difference. Third contention, it was basically completely dropped, judges. Please extend that and flow that through. I strongly encourage you to cast an F ballot. Thank you.
Framework neg F. 5 minute time isn't going too fast for me to clear. Alright. With that, time starts. On to the reply of the welcome message. The welcome message is not exactly what we're going for. The negation provides a different framework, a different definition, argument. And they simply say that the affirmative is choice of the framework is extremely unfair. Negation has the ability to concede framework and actually argue framework. It increases cost and debate, which is key for education. So we looked at the welcome message, right? The welcome message is not exactly what we're going for. We can go for any other thing. It doesn't have to be a welcome message. For example, my partner gives an analysis. If the aliens ask, is anyone there? We can simply reply with the word yes. We don't have to send a welcome message. We have to look for real world politics, where there's actual like frameworks in place right now that state that if there's like a message, the international community decides what they're going to do. So it's not only a welcome message, it can just simply be an answer to a question. Onto the next argument, reply, receiving communication and not specified specifically to Earth. There's 6 responses to this. First, they'll send out a message to the entire galaxy, and they'll only send it out if they know people are there. Second, negation like is able to refute frameworks. Third, they have to know a planet is here. We know that the planet exists, which is why we send out Earth communications. We don't also send transmission to Pluto and Neptune right now. Fourth, assumption of technology means that they've probably conquered or dominated other stars, planets, galaxies, which means they've probably sent out hundreds of messages without responses and taken over resources there. 5, our argument is we've probably screwed either way because they have the technology to reach out to us from trillions of light years away, which probably means the best which means responding is the best option now. 6, even if it is the overall galaxy right now, eventually they will have the technology to realize that the Earth has life. Because we've given this argument multiple times. There's now a concrete reason in this round to believe that there's extraterrestrial life out there. Eventually, in maybe 3021 or 4021, they will realize that there's life on Earth right now, which means that they will eventually realize there are people on Earth, which means negotiation is the only way to actually solve the issues they provide. There's 6 responses on this argument. Next, going on to the negation case, right? So they don't really have much response to technology. And first of all, I want to take it in terms of weighing. So we have to look at the Earth's extinction scenarios first of all. The first extinction scenario is climate change. Right now, we don't have the technology or the means and the political processes necessary to solve for climate change. We looked at Republican backlog in the United States, and we also look to Chinese, the government, where there's a lot of pollution that is happening right now from the international community. I mean, there's also extinction scenarios on Earth, meaning technology is the only key to solve for them. So we have to look to the probability these extinction scenarios from climate change and global war and nuclear war come before the probability of interacting with aliens. What if we know that these aliens are super nice, they're super want to help us? The probability of Earth extinction scenarios come first, which means you have to look for technological advancements to solve some of these Earth extinction scenarios, such as pandemics, such as climate change, such as AI and stuff like that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if we agree with the uniqueness that aliens are significantly more technologically advanced and powerful than us, why would they have any incentive to benefit us?
They're making an assumption that these people are mean people. These people are humans. You have to look to these aliens may be extremely nice people. They're just making that assumption, right? Next argument is that they say that the climate change argument is in a similar vein to what we don't know what Earth is going to have. There is a specific chance. It is a try or die on the global warming scenario. There's no response to this coming from the affirmative on the global warming uniqueness argument. It is a try or die scenario for the negation. We have to solve for global warming as the highest probability extinction scenario for Earth right now. Extend the second argument about if they reach out to us, it obviously means they have better technological capabilities of. This means that we can lead to things like cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is going to be key for, detecting like nanomedicine, detecting like new drugs for screening, which is key for actual extinction scenarios that are happening on Earth that have a very high probability. Look to COVID-19, which shut down the entire economy. Now, look at this argument. What is stopping them from hurting us? What is also stopping them from helping us? There's no there's assumptions on both sides of this debate. It's again, look to risk. The risk of climate scenarios and risk of like pandemic scenarios are higher in the negation world. We need technology to solve for first. Extend the argument about like negotiation is the only way to solve. For example, even if they don't know it's a broad message, by 3041, eventually they will know that there's people on Earth, meaning that we eventually have to look at the negations like framework that we're providing, which means that we have to eventually negotiate with them, because if they might take silence as a way of hostility. Talk about the negation creates extinction scenarios. We create extinction scenarios, but we also potentially solve for the extinction scenarios that are already present on Earth, and these are the extinction scenarios that should be weighed first because they're the highest probability of happening. Both sides use assumptions of what aliens may do as part of their extinction scenarios, so you should weigh probability over magnitude in this sense. Going on to interconnectivity, it says it adds a lot of tensions between humans and aliens right now. So we have to look at what this tension may do. Right now, we're in a pandemic. So like in this U.S. Senate, that means all other issues of like immigration are pushed back because we're looking to solve for the pandemic, because that is a national threat in the first place, right? This is similar to what will happen when the international community receives information from aliens. We'll push back other issues of like menial Earth conflicts that are already killing us so many lives. We also looked at the example of the South China Sea, or terrorist organizations in Syria and Pakistan we provide for. These are actually killing lives right now. If we get to stop killing these lives, this is a first high probability impact that's coming from negation. Value probability over magnitude in this sense, because we can't just say magnitude is like infinitely regressive. We can just have all impacts out to like extinction scenarios. And all impacts in this case are out to extinction scenarios. Should value probability of these extinction scenarios before the extinction scenarios. They talk about, again, these tensions are assumed. What if these aliens are extremely happy and the extinction are very, very nice? Then there's assuming tensions are going to happen. Extend the argument about the IET framework that is saying that it will be via all states. That's not going to be like a global thing. They talk about this cosmopolitanism. There's no African American scientists. It's not all people on Earth. It will, after contact, post contact, will become cosmopolitanism. Sorry, I don't have too much time. I'll get to it at the end of that time. Will be cosmopolitanism, because we'll actually interact with aliens and we'll actually understand what they're going to go for, and we have a unified national global threat against humanity, which causes things such as passports and things such as immigration and borders to be obsolete in the world. Extend the arguments of communication will outweigh, and extend the arguments that would reduce tensions of war specifically on Earth. Again, these tensions come first because of probability. Now going on to the affirmative case, right? So onto this language and cultural barrier. There's two arguments against this. One, if they reach out to us, we're able to understand their message because we know it's from aliens. This solves for the language barrier because we can eventually send the message that they are able to understand. We gave this argument before, right? We can eventually understand them, which is a key thing, which solves the language barrier they provide for. Not on a societal norms. So extend what my partner said. The only way we can understand societal norms is by actually looking at them. Look to dogs wagging their tails. We didn't understand dogs wagging their tails. I don't have time. I'll get to it at the end if I have time. If dogs are wagging their tails, we can tell that they're happy. The only way we understand societal norms is by contacting them. Again, what if silence is a way of hostility? The only foolproof way of understanding societal norms comes from actually contacting them. Second argument against this under societal norms is apologies are there. You can apologize in almost every contact. If you have to look at human race for precedent, you can apologize to anything. You can apologize to animals like dogs. If you hurt them, you can give them a treat. You can bring them back. So there are ways to apologize if we break the societal norm in their argument. Next argument is they have these on their military warfare. Again, extend interconnectivity, extend probability first. Onto risk of contact. Again, if the world is going to die from future pandemics or global warming, we need to take a risk to gain more technological advances first place. Again, second argument is they make a lot of assumptions that we're going to be connecting with them. The first is they're going to actually come on Earth. What if they're just from far away? They're multiple light year galaxies away and they're not able to come on Earth. Therefore, then these biological risks will happen. Again, value probability of Earth extinction scenarios over every other extinction scenario because those are actually happening in the status quo. onto like representation, extend interconnectivity. My partner makes this response and they don't like interact with it and how it impacts representation. We give the argumentation that the message will come from all states specifically because of the framework, which increases interconnectivity, which therefore increases the representation in the status quo as well, because it's coming from all states and all beings, and it unionizes the entire world. It gets a common debt, which leads to more representation. It doesn't lead to like the UNC, a Eurocentric point of view that is currently in the argument, currently in the status quo. Again, their uniqueness is status quo, bad is bad representation. We have to try or die for the negation. For all these reasons, I strongly urge negation ballot. Thank you.
One quick point. I never caught the names of the leader and member of the opposition. Can you guys just say that really quick?
Yeah, so the LO is Aryan and the MO is Vivek.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you
No
just
worries.
repeat that one more time?
Yeah, so the LO is Aryan Shah
Oh, got it.
and the MO is Vivek Garg.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm gonna just mute while I set up my timer. All right, 4 minutes. I'll be doing overview, neg voters, preempts, and then impacts. And I'll signpost, hopefully. Is everybody ready? Okay. With that, my time starts now. On the overview 1, regulatory frameworks ensure that the response from humans will be peaceful and will involve the consultation of not only human scientists, but all humans as a whole. That probably kills the representation advantage. Even if there is a marginal effort towards representation, that's probably still going to outweigh all of their arguments because of the fact that we're going to be winning on like their third disadvantage. You can pretty much, or third advantage, pretty much like if they like go for that argument, like that's pretty much moot. But the second thing is that the easiest path to the ballot for the negative is a try or die scenario. The probability should be preferred even if it's like a marginal increase, because of the fact that the probability of global warming is at an all-time high right now. The risk of extinction is at an all-time high, and the magnitude of these arguments is pretty much on the same time. We're both talking about extinction scenarios, but the probability of resolving these harms is just marginally higher on the negative, which is why you should vote there. Right now, all we're seeing is a lot of assumptions, but those assumptions should be outweighed by the risk of a global warming scenario that's going to just cause the human race to go extinct along with trillions of other species, right? These are the articulations that we make earlier, but the only way of resolving those harms is through like trying to overcome the cultural barriers. But if we continue to assume, that prevents us from ever making progress. What we've seen is that the only way the world developed was through the cosmopolitanist perspectives that we established in our interconnectivity advantage, which probably means you should vote there immediately. But the second thing is that their time skew arguments. I'm just going to address this really quickly. The 2NC is a constructive. We will probably lose if we spend too much time responding and placing high burdens if I don't collapse in my LOR. So I'm going to try my best to collapse in the LOR. I'm sorry if it's too much of a time skew. But hopefully 5 minutes is enough. Let's go to the next thing. Technology.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Time skew is new in the LOR, and my partner brought it up in the MGC.
I'm pretty sure my partner addressed it in the MO. It's a panel. Yeah. Either way, okay. I'll just go to the neg voter. Time restarts now. Technology advancements. One, the first argument that we make is peace precedes technology, or like technological discoveries, which probably makes our method of solving the best method possible. Silence could be viewed as hostility, but a response could be viewed as hostility. We probably concede that, but the argument is that our best method of supporting this is probably through response, which is the best way to overcome cultural barriers. That's the only way humans have ever resolved anything, which probably means you should vote there immediately, right? Because of the fact that we should do whatever we think is best. Two, cultural barriers can only be understood from societal norms by trying to understand things. I make this articulation in my first speech. Again, it's like we understand dogs and cats because of the fact that we've tried to communicate with them, or like the Vietnamese cultural aspects, like the hard handshakes that they talk about. They can see these arguments through and through. Three, again, assumptions are bad because messages will be from all states, which probably increases representation, which is why a response would be good. Even an effort is better than no response because of the fact that the affirmative just reifies the power structures of the United States Security Council. On preempts, really quickly, one is like the increased tension, negotiations solve plus the interconnectivity arguments. Two, they also they're probably going to tell you increased tensions, but again, there are assumption of aliens being bad is just completely false, and we don't really know what to expect of them, right? Which probably means that our best response is the only response that should be provided, right? To cultural and language barriers, they're probably going to go for this argument that we can't communicate with them, or like biological transmission could like wipe out the human race. Either way, like the human race is going to be wiped out completely in like I don't know, like 2,000 years or like whatever, right? Through climate change soon, or like aliens will come in like the next 2,000 years, whatever it may be, we're probably going to die out anyway, which probably means that the best way to like avoid anything is through technological advancements offered by aliens, because we know for a fact that if they're sending out communication, they are more advanced than us technologically. That is not an assumption. That is probably a proven fact because of the fact that they've like in this like fantasy world that they've communicated to us already, right? Three is like biological connectivity. Again, weigh the Earth extinction scenarios over anything, because the fact that the probability of solving it is the only method of like actually trying to resolve any of the harms that are going to be affecting humans or other species on the planet at all. On the impacts, one, weigh case over like their fairness arguments, as they make no reason to prefer anything. We give a reason to weigh probability on top of the fact that like I pretty much collapsed. I didn't like spend a lot of time responding to their arguments. To weigh the Earth extinction scenarios over any extinction scenarios, as they're much more likely to and probable, because of the fact that like we've already seen this happen, and we've seen point of no return analysis by many scientists already, which probably means you should be buying the Earth extinction scenarios first, which probably means that the aliens like working with us probably leads to like technological advancements that prevent that from happening. Again, like medicine, AI, nanomedicine, cybersecurity, all the things that we talked about earlier in case. For all of these reasons, we strongly urge an egg ballot on the case of extinction scenarios.
Give me just one second.
Are you good to go?
Yeah. All right. So, quick off-time roadmap. What I'm going to be doing with this speech is I will first start off case, then move into some clarifications and some voters. And that's about it. Yeah. All right. So I will begin my time now. All right, so my partner told my opponents not to up-block dump responses and warned them about them, yet they did it anyway. So I think it's pretty reasonable for me to run theory against them quickly. I don't understand theory that well, but I'll try. The interp is that op should not barely touch the case in LOC, then dump responses in the op block. The violation is that op barely touched the response in the case in the LOC. They gave about 30 seconds worth of responses and then dumped responses in the op block. Violation is that they barely touched the case in the LOC and then dumped response to the op block. Standards are like time skew.
Point of order, stop time.
Yeah.
The argument is completely new, especially the theory interp. If they wanted to run like preemptive theory, they could have just given us the interp earlier, which probably means that like this entire shell is new, and the fact that we can't respond to it at all probably just violates any fairness claims.
Well, here's what it is. My partner essentially said that it's unfair for you to dump responses in the op block after barely responding in the LOC, which is essentially the interp. So that's fair. And then that's kind of like a preempt. And then now I'm just doing it now because this is like, I can't run theory on the fact that you op block dump until after you op block dump. Okay, I'll try to get through it quickly anyways. All right, so standards are like time skew. Obviously, I don't have enough time to respond. It reduces clash because clash on the gov case doesn't really start until after MOC, until LOC. Also, my partner warned them in the MGC not to dump, and then they dumped responses to our case. In fact, like they had spreading from the MO. So voters, fairness is a voter because fairness skews evaluation of the round. Arguments are seen as true as false based on the flow, and if the round is skewed and the flow is no longer a good indicator of who did the better debating. Fairness is a jurisdictional question. Job of the judge is to vote for the better debater. So minimizing in-round unfairness is prior question to any other impact. Fairness preserve participation. Otherwise, debaters will quit the activity due to abusive practices and unfair arguments. Fairness is key to clash, which is a unique education got in other debates, so it acts as the link to education. Education is a voter. Education tied to debates intrinsic value. Debates an academic activity, and when it loses its educational value, it loses its purpose to exist. Schools fund debate because of inherent educational benefit, and without the activity would die. If the educational significance around has been obstructed, then the existence of the debate is threatened. So like, yes, so we're winning on both education and fairness. So like the implications are that you drop them because they like dropping them incentivizes teams not to be abusive in the future. The round has been irreparably screwed by abusive practices, and then drop the argument means debaters will read abusive positions to generate a positive time trade-off. So you have to drop them because of what they did. All right. So into some clarifications. That being clear, that being said, we clearly win even by the shell. Let me make some quick clarifications, then get into voters. They tell you they will only send out a message if they know people are there. That's untrue. The MO admitted it could be sent to a ton of different galaxies to try and find someone. They say that at some point in the future, aliens will realize there's life on Earth without providing any reasoning for this. If they send these messages to 500 galaxies and they do not hear a response from our galaxy, they will not come back. They continue to say that aliens will help with extinction scenarios on Earth. We'll give you 2 reasons why this is wrong. They that are not touched. Firstly, there are inherent power dynamics present. They will not see us versus real people and will therefore take advantage of us. Secondly, their tech will be entirely different from anything we've ever seen before. They won't use fuel or have AI. This is not try or die. It's not clear that the aliens know we're here. We are very far from the cliff, so to speak, and we get closer to the cliff if we trigger the aliens or alert them to our existence. They concede our framing that the aliens do not know we are present. All right, voter issue 1, will the aliens help us? It's a clash between our first advantage and their first disad. They give you a bunch of arguments about how we will be able to work with the aliens. However, they need to prove 2 things to access the impacts of this argument. They need to access 1, that aliens will have the incentive to help us, and then they need to access 2, that we'll be able to work with aliens. I'll disprove both. Firstly, their only justification for the first one from the it comes out of the MOC, and they tell you that like aliens are nice, so they'll help us. That's not really true. They're more advanced technologically. We cannot assume they're nice. Everyone's guided by their own self-interest. Look to Adam Smith, like, and also like they're inherently selfish. People are inherently selfish. That basic logic. Also, like their incentive is to use us for our resources because we're behind them. And like, secondly, we won't be able to work with them because our languages are different. We give you a bunch of examples. They tell you we need to talk to them to be able to understand them. The risk here is that we
Stop time. The analysis regarding cultural barriers was given by my LOC, and was not responded to by their second speaker, and now it's being responded to at the end again, just new arguments in third speech.
Sorry, which specific analysis?
The analysis towards like accessing cultural barriers and why like assumptions are bad, or like responding to that argument.
I said all of this. Maybe it didn't flow, and I'm not sure. But
also, the argument is practically the same as it was in the PMC. So even either way, okay, judges can just deliberate. All right, so they tell you we need to talk to them to be able to understand them. The risk here is that we miscommunicate before we understand each other, leading to war. Like, that's the problem here. If we like have one little miscommunication before we understand each other, that could easily lead to war, and they're going to win the war because they're more powerful. All right, voter issue 2 is disease, which is our second advantage. We give you many minutes of analysis on why disease is incredibly high risk. The response from the LOC is we literally do not know that the biological differences are this large. It's all an assumption. We can probably take a guess they're very biologically different because they have a different evolutionary process the aliens do from us. We have a very similar biological process to many animals like monkeys and fruit flies, but even then we frequently get disease from animals like Zika, COVID, Ebola, malaria, etc. It'll be so much worse for aliens. They also tell you if the world will die of pandemics anyways, we need future tech advances to assume they're close enough to come this close to Earth. So like the Earth will not die of pandemics anyways. That's not true. The only way the Earth dies of pandemics is that other species come on Earth. That's what they're proposing. It's not the try or die scenario they've invented. They've invented it by creating the problems that to solve. Like that's okay. We win on this voter by itself because it's not touched. They just say to cross-apply interconnectivity. Let's look at representation and interconnectivity because they haven't touched it all around. They say the message will come from all states, but that's inherently biased because it's like we tell you about differences in power in the UN Security Council. The aliens won't know how to interact with us as a result because the message will be biased. So like the problem is like they'll treat us badly. They might treat like people of color and like women and people members of the LGBTQ community differently because of bias. It will also cause more divide because like it's one more issue to cause divide. Scientists are disproportionately white and male as well and rich. And so okay, like quickly like we are giving you the extinction of humanity. They give you this like try or die idea that isn't really clear. It's not clear that we're all gonna perish because like they don't know we're here. They don't know we're vulnerable until we respond to this message, then we show them. So the real like try or die risk is like only once they get here, but like they don't necessarily get here until we like tell them like we're here, come here, like we will interact with you. And then at that point, like we win on disease, we win on like the risk of war and belligerency, and then we win on the third voter issue because it's not touched, because we don't want to perpetuate racism and sexism against millions of people. So thank you, Dr. Gopal.